Hey guys, welcome to today's video. As I am taking you guys for a little hike, I will be talking to you about managing that empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings, perspectives and emotions of another person. It involves the capacity to step into somebody else's shoes, essentially, and see the world from their point of view and genuinely resonate with that other person's emotional state. Now, here is where empathy gets dangerous, and that is when it becomes toxic empathy. Toxic empathy refers to an excessive and unhealthy form of empathy that causes us to lose sight of our own needs and boundaries. Toxic empathy does not permit us to have limits, okay? When you have that sort of empathy where the lines become blurred between your needs and the other person's needs, you basically render yourself invisible. Toxic empathy is a way in which we invalidate ourselves. It's a way in which we train ourselves, I suppose, that we don't matter, because toxic empathy doesn't permit us to have limits as to how much we are willing to invest in the emotional world of another person. And furthermore, toxic empathy does not permit us to love ourselves. We will sacrifice our own values, our own well-being for someone who may or may not even appreciate what we do for them. And of course, if you're dealing with a narcissist or narcissistic parent, of course you're not going to appreciate what you're doing. They feel entitled to your empathy. They feel absolutely entitled to you constantly, feeling sorry for them. And if you really think about it, if you think about the enablers in your life, who maybe the spouse of the narcissist or the golden child of the narcissist, even though they will see how the narcissist behaves with their scapegoat, even though they will see how toxic and how hurtful they can be to their own child, as soon as the narcissistic parents sheds that tear, I had a hard life, and that's the reason why I abuse, that's the reason why I behave badly, that's the reason why I'm not emotionally present, that's the reason why I don't do anything to help myself. As soon as they shed that tear, that's it. All empathy goes towards the narcissist and their sob stories, and there is no empathy left for the people who actually suffer at the hands of that narcissist and who actually have to endure the consequences of narcissistic abuse. So I'm going to talk to you about covert narcissism for a minute, and how they will utilize people's empathy for control. So as we care about the people that we love, we can become ashamed of ourselves when we believe that we are causing them pain, or when we are powerless to soothe them, leading us to get into the habit of continuously suppressing our true selves in order to appease another person. And this is how our empathy becomes weaponized. The minute that you start suppressing your values, your needs, your boundaries, the minute that you start depleting your resources to the point that you actually have nothing left for yourself because you gave everyone else resources that were actually meant for you, your empathy becomes a tool. It becomes a weapon that renders you, that enables another person to have control over you emotionally. They will do this covertly. And just as a reminder, your needs are not supposed to be in competition with another person, with another person's needs. That's not how it works. The general rule of thumb is that you have to be an active participant in fulfilling your needs. They have to be an active participant in fulfilling their needs, and the both of you come together and meet in the middle, as two healthy individuals, two healthy, balanced individuals. Covert narcissists will hide their narcissism behind a facade of humility, selflessness, and victimhood. I have experienced this, especially with my narcissistic mother, who consistently weaponized, her deeds, the fact that she would cook food, or the fact that she would, do certain things, which, on the surface it may sound like, oh, at least your mom cared for you, but it's not like that. That's not how covert narcissism works. It's not that at least she cared for you. It's that they will impose their care upon you, care that you didn't ask for. And then they will utilize that care to destroy your image, as proof that you don't appreciate them and that you're a devil child. Like, it's a very silly example, but there was a point in my teenagehood when I was starting to try to gain independence, right? I was becoming more independent, entering adulthood slowly, and I've asked her not to wash my laundry, but there was, I would keep my laundry in my room, in my laundry basket, and I wanted my privacy to be respected, and I would tell her, don't come in my room, don't touch my laundry. I will schedule that for myself on the weekends. Like, please, respect my privacy. And of course, her being a narcissist and not understanding anything about boundaries, she would go in my room. And of course, I know that she would go through my stuff, but then she would grab the laundry basket and wash it. So, okay, fine, okay, thank you. But then, that wasn't the end of that. Then, on that day, or any reason, when she would look for me to antagonize me, to release that inner anger that she felt within, as soon as I reacted to her antagonism, to her name calling, to that atrocious psychological abuse that she kept putting on me, as soon as I responded to that, as I would react to that, she would talk about that laundry basket. So they will use those things they do for you, that care, that all those things that they choose to do for you, which are not wanted. Like, you don't want those things, but they will use those things that they choose to do for you, and they will weaponize them so that the whole family looks at you through a lens of being an ungrateful person. And also they will use those so that they can hide their abuse. They can hide their abuse behind their care. And when they do this, they will all the time weaponize empathy towards how hard they work for you. And they will also weaponize the enabler's empathy, how hard they work for that ungrateful child. They will weaponize that empathy. Covert narcissists will gaslight you, and they will manipulate the entire family system, everybody that's in the system, everybody that's involved with them. They will utilize their victimhood, and they will utilize their chosen kind deeds to evoke people's empathy so that they can continue abusing the scapegoat behind closed doors, and so that they can continue dumping their depression and their unfulfilled needs, and dumping the responsibility of their own happiness onto their children, onto the scapegoat, onto anyone who listens. They will always evoke that toxic empathy to excuse whatever bad behavior they did, even if they hit their child, or if the silent treatment, emotional, like character destruction, talking behind their own children's backs, never being held accountable for their behavior. No matter what they do, it is never, ever, ever, ever their fault. And they will use whatever sad life story they can come up with as a reason to excuse those abuses. They will weaponize guilt. They will weaponize your love, and they will weaponize your empathy. Not just your empathy, but everybody's empathy. And by doing that, you become invisible. Your pain is invisible. Your pain is invalidated, and your pain is in constant competition with theirs. Enablers may actually feel like it's their duty to support and defend the narcissist, even if it means ignoring and minimizing the harm that is being inflicted onto others and even onto themselves. That's what toxic empathy does. You lose sight of your values. You lose sight of what is right and what is wrong. And so this happens because the narcissist has crafted such a perfect image of them being so good and so empathetic and so hurt and so vulnerable, that even though their actions show completely differently, the enablers just can't see it. I'll tell you, my mother, she called herself the greatest empath on this earth, eh? She always talked about how wonderful and how empathetic she was. But do you know that when she met my husband, who is of Asian descent, she didn't refer to him by his name. She called him Chinese boy, and he's not even Chinese. She called him Chinese boy. That's what she referred to him. Let me tell you something. It's not because someone did you a favor or gave you a present that they're actually a good person. It's not because somebody is generous with you with their stuff that they are actually have your best interest at heart. Sometimes they do that because it gives them leverage over you. It gives them an advantage, a power position over you. It does. And it also makes them feel good, right? Oh, look at me, I'm so empathetic. I did such good things, right? But then when the time comes for the real test of empathy, like when there really is a problem, when there really is a discussion to be had, or maybe they behaved in a way that hurt your feelings, and you try and talk to them about that, that's when you really get to know a person for real. Are they actually empathetic? Are they open? Are they listening to you? Are they able to take in what you have to say? Or are they going to leverage all the things that they did for you, to make you feel bad, to trigger your empathy, and then nothing is ever solved, and then you end up being in a one-sided toxic relationship, foolishly, and they will fool you into believing that it's a two-way relationship because of their generous deeds and the nice things they do for you. Now, a consequence can be laid down regardless of your level of empathy or love for another person, okay? A consequence has nothing to do with the love that you have for someone else and everything to do with respecting yourself, okay? A consequence is that line in the sand that you draw for yourself to safeguard yourself, and also to sort of, inform people of what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. You can be okay and not okay with things regardless of how much you love another person. You understand, the consequence has nothing to do with how much you love another person. It's basically you just saying, okay, this is comfortable, this is uncomfortable. You know, this has nothing to do with your level of discomfort or comfort. Your limits have nothing to do with how much you love another person. So it's really important that you teach yourself to recognize that line, okay? You have to recognize that line between empathy and toxic empathy, between empathy and also reserving some self-respect for yourself. Consequences can be a powerful tool in fostering healthy, respectful, and meaningful interactions with others. And this is something that your narcissistic parent did not teach you, because that is forbidden in a narcissistic family system. So for example, if someone shares your personal information without permission, a consequence could be for you to no longer share your personal information with that person. Even if they suddenly look at you and say, you don't trust me anymore, you don't love me anymore. Love has nothing to do with the act of you protecting yourself. Laying down a consequence with another person is not, I don't love you. Rather is, I love you and I love me too. Let's work together to strengthen this relationship as two equals who respect each other. And this mindset is so important to be fostered, and not you giving into this endless deep well of empathy that forces you to ignore yourself and ignore, not, and deplete yourself. Narcissists have a talent for eliciting toxic empathy from their victims, and this allows them to act without accountability. When you communicate your concerns or set your boundaries, it is always with the intention of resolving issues and fostering growth in your relationship, right? And so when it gets to the point where, you are constantly depleting yourself because you feel guilty when you don't deplete yourself for another person, that is a sign, and you actually have to really become an active participant in putting an end to that, putting a stop to that. You have to be compassionate towards yourself. And, you will even experience toxic self-blame in this process. Toxic empathy will even lead to toxic self-blame, because you end up blaming yourself for how other people respond to your boundaries. You end up blaming yourself for the narcissist's refusal to help themselves, for their refusal to take accountability for their actions, and for the utter destruction that they cause you, and the utter destruction and division that they cause within the entire family. You end up blaming yourself as if you're a bad person for having a physical discomfort with something that they're doing, for saying no, for having preferences. This is not normal. This is not how healthy relationships work. Don't compromise your own needs. Don't deplete your resources to the point that you are too exhausted, hurt, to carry on with your day. Don't feel guilty for not depleting your own resources for another person who may not even appreciate it. Don't feel guilty for saying no when you feel like the answer really is no. And don't feel guilty for how people respond to your boundaries, because people that don't want you to have boundaries will utilize your empathy to blur that line, to get you to ignore your boundaries, to get you to do things that you're not comfortable with, and for you to even agree to do things that will at the end of the day hurt you and hurt your mental health, that will take away your emotional safety, that will take away your right to peace, And so reserve a lot of that empathy for yourself. Make sure that you prioritize your needs. Make sure that you prioritize your emotional safety. Make sure that you prioritize whatever it is that you want to do so that you can self-actualize, so that you can follow your dreams, so that you can thrive as a human being. And when they make you feel guilty for doing those things, remember that that is toxic guilt. And remember that that is toxic empathy. You know, when they make you feel like you are hurting them for doing those things, that is toxic empathy. Remember that. Remember that. And prioritize yourself. Do what you gotta do to protect yourself. I hope this helped you. I hope this helped you. And thank you for being here. And always remember to repeat, I love myself, I trust myself. And I'll talk to you soon.